Okay, stop right there. Rolling.
Get over here.
I am coming. And here I am. And guess we were just came from
Virginia. Washington, D.C.
To do what? To visit our family. My aunt and uncle who celebrated their 50th anniversary in 2023 that we flew to the Philippines for. And my cousin Rodelle, their daughter. And to also do some sightseeing because we haven't been in that area for quite some time.
Right. And Rodelle lives there outside of D.C. in Virginia. And her parents had been there since May, and they had said they were going to be heading back to the Philippines first part of November. So I had actually planned this trip months ago as a surprise trip for him at the end of summer. Instead of the surprise for him, he gave me the surprise of COVID. And so he was out sick for his first time with COVID, so I had to cancel the trip with his cousin and aunt and uncle in Virginia back in the summer, and then we rescheduled it and had to cancel it and then rescheduled it again. So by the time we actually went, it was no longer a surprise for either party, more of a surprise that we actually got there. So we were pleased to get there, to see the fall colors and to visit them.
It was an excellent trip.
I hadn't been in DC. I lived there in 1987 in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and worked in DC. So last time I'd been there was in 2014. So it'd been 10 years since the last time I'd been to DC. So it was really nice for me.
I think that's about the same. Well, I haven't been to DC since the early 2000s. But the last time I was in Virginia was in 2010, I think, visiting Rodelle. We had a group dinner at King's Buffet, I think it was called. And joining us were Rodelle, Auntie Audie and Uncle Rudy, and also Selena and her boyfriend Carlos. Selena went with Rodelle last year to the Philippines and joined us for the 50th, the golden anniversary for Uncle Rudy and Auntie Audie.
And we spent a fair bit of time with Selena in the Philippines. She went whitewater rafting with us and hung out with her quite a bit. So it was nice to see Selena in Virginia.
Yeah.
And meet her boyfriend.
Another nice little reunion.
Right. So we spent an afternoon in Alexandria, Old Town Alexandria, which is a historic area of Virginia right along the Potomac River, the Virginia side of the Potomac River. And when I worked there, I used to take tour groups there. So I had some nostalgic feeling to go back to Alexandria, and it was something that Polly had not been to. So we went there really kind of for lunch and just to hang out. We hung out a bit at a little coffee shop there. It's a quaint little coffee shop. Mm-hmm. Walked around on the streets, saw the old buildings and some of the old architecture. There was some street fair going on, and a magician carrying on with his show, trying to rope me into the show. And then just some things along the water, and then we had lunch.
Yeah, tight restaurant for lunch.
Yeah.
And then leaving Alexandria.
Bagong taon ay magbagong buhay nang lumigaya ang ating bayan.
Driving again through the fall foliage, which is always nice.
Right. Beautiful foliage. We kind of got just about at the right time because the weather was still pleasant, warm, but cooling off at night, and so the colors were starting to turn. They hadn't had any big rainstorms. There was one coming, but when we were there, it was pretty clear.
Right.
So on our last day, we went to the Air and Space Museum. Now, there's two of them in D.C. area. There's one in D.C. downtown in the mall, and then there's a second one out near Ashburn.
It's the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center, and that's where a lot of cool stuff is. The Space Shuttle Discovery is there, so I was totally geeking out on that. The other notable aircraft like Enola Gay is there.
The stealth fighter, one of the stealth fighters, the stealth bomber. Very cool. And a lot of helicopters, lots of unique aircraft there. Okay.
So we had planned to do the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center the previous day on Saturday, but when we got there, there was a super long line of trick-or-treaters because they had this event for kids, and like we saw there was a ton of people in costumes, so that's why we went to Old Town Alexandria Old Town instead
instead.
for some sightseeing there.
Right. It was a change up.
On our first full day in Virginia, we decided to go to Washington, D.C. so we could check out a couple of monuments at the National Mall, which was pretty amazing. I've been there before, but in a limited capacity. You know, I went to the Lincoln Memorial, the Capitol, and the White House, but not any of the other attractions in the mall. So he really wanted to go see the Thomas Jefferson Memorial.
Because that's my favorite. That's always been my favorite. It was one of the places I would go to when I lived there, and every time I went back to DC for any reason, for any trip over the years, Jefferson Memorial would always be a place. If I didn't get to anything else, it would always be the Jefferson Memorial. And it, to me, is spectacular during the day and spectacular at night, even more spectacular at night.
Yeah, it's true. So we did go back another night. We were lucky that we got a chance to go back at the nighttime because I wanted to see all the lights and the effects that it had, you know, in the daytime, and then also how the treatment is at night. So I'm glad that we did that. We went around. Our next stop was the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, which is also very touching.
Very touching. It's the first time I'd seen that.
And then we went to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, and that was pretty spectacular too.
It was a cool design. It was kind of like the way I envisioned it, or the way I saw it, the way it impressed on me. It was like Martin Luther King was breaking through, and so it was kind of like his bust breaking through. So it was like challenging the times that he was in and breaking through the traditions. Is the way I kind of viewed it.
That's great. Great metaphor and description.
And then we went around to the Korean Memorial. And I'd been to the Korean Memorial years ago, but I really hadn't spent a lot of time at the Korean Memorial. At the time when I was in DC, the Vietnam Memorial had just opened. And so every time we took a group there, that was the big attraction. So we spent a lot of time at the Vietnam Memorial at that time. This time we spent a fair bit of time at the Korean Memorial.
That was actually my favorite, my personal favorite. It just was so hauntingly stunning and beautiful, and really captured an emotion. It forced an emotion out of you, any kind of emotion.
My dad served in the Korean conflict on a Navy ship, but that memorial garden was to those 33,000, 33,000 who lost their lives in the Korean War, plus all those who served. So it was definitely a touching memorial, touching dedication to them.
I think my favorite part was the reflection wall.
Oh, yeah.
Where there was, in the daytime, you could see the reflection off of the statues of soldiers behind or across from it, and then at nighttime, there were these etchings of faces of all the different kinds of soldiers and military personnel, and at nighttime, those etchings showed up even more. So you kind of get different experiences on both the daytime and at night. And then we continued on to the Lincoln Memorial.
Which was very crowded. Super crowded that day. It was.
All right. And then the Vietnam War Memorial, Vietnam War Veterans Memorial, the World War II Memorial I've not been to before, and it was kind of interesting. It was had all these fountains and wreaths that of all the 50 states and the U.S. territories. I think some allies. So we didn't go all the way around that one, but that was also another.
And the Philippines were listed as that one.
Yeah,
It's part of a territory.
right. Very stunning
Yeah.
memorial. And then the Washington Monument. You can't miss that. And we went to the White House. He really wanted to see the White House, but it was so
It's
gated.
like a fortress.
Yeah, like you can't even really see it anymore unless you can see it from the Jefferson Memorial, but when you're up close, it's hard to get a look. You really have to find some corners behind some gates, and that's the only way you could really take a look.
You have a better view on the South Lawn and the Ellipse the north side, you absolutely don't have a very good view. It is so blocked off, and we asked one of the guards, and he said it was because they were preparing for inauguration.
And then while our feet were pretty much screaming at this point, we soldiered on to the Capitol, United States Capitol, and luckily we were able to catch, it wasn't really a tour, but it was more like just a trip to the Rotunda, and also that place was packed, but it was nice to go there again. I've been there before, and they had some new attractions built in since we were there last.
In fact, the entire east side of the Capitol has an entire visitor center, the Capitol Visitor Center, which is stunning setup, which is a completely different experience than when I used to take groups through there. We'd come through the east side or the west side steps of the Capitol, go right into the Rotunda or right into the center of the Capitol. You go through a visitor center, and they've got all kinds of displays in the visitor center. There's a gallery, a movie theater, gift shop, and all that kind of thing. So definitely set up for more visitors and more controlled. And I presume it's so that the visitors can see the activity but not necessarily interfere with all the flow of the lawmakers. Because in the late 80s when I was there, you'd go right up into the rotunda in the center area, and you could be right in the middle of the flow of lawmakers going back and forth. And so obviously they've had to change that for safety reasons, but they've also created a much better visitor experience from my perspective.
Yeah, definitely nice to check that out, and probably take maybe half a day to dedicate to it, because it's such a huge building, and obviously lots of attractions now.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that's right near the Library of Congress, which is another stunning tour, but we didn't go on that. And that's how we roll.
Thanks for rolling with us. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. We hope to see you next time.
Thank you for rolling with the Pulse.